When you first take leca out of the bag, it is absolutely filthy. There is a lot of clay dust in that bag. I know you'd have thought about, well, how do I clean this stuff? And I know you probably have come across what I like to call the definitive blog post and how to clean leca straight out of the bag. And this is a blog post by Eve, who is the LecaAddict. And it is a fabulous blog post that lists step by step the best way of cleaning your leca straight out of the bag and why you need to do what you're going to do. With Eve's blessing, thank you Eve, I'm going to make a video of her blog post and go step by step, do everything as she describes, explain things hopefully as she describes it, and that hopefully will help to clear up some of the misconceptions and kind of like false information that's floating around about what you need to do to clean your leca. Misconceptions like, oh, but I just get my leca out of the bag, I give it a wash and I put my plant in it, it's just fine. Or I just take my leca out of the bag, I give it a wash, I soak it for about an hour and it's just fine. But just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Just because your plant can live in a dirty environment, which is what it will be doing if you don't clean your leca properly, doesn't mean that it should. Doesn't mean that it's happy. So hopefully this video will help you make choices about what's the right way. I know I don't like to use the word right, but what's a better way of cleaning your leca? The most important question, I think, the elephant in the room, is why do you need to clean your leca anyway? Why is it so important to get the leca and clean it? Why can't you just use it as it is? After all, it's clay, it's never going to be completely clean. The plant is used to living in soil, so what is the problem? Let's talk about how leca is manufactured. Leca is just clay, that's what it is. The leca manufacturing company sets up in a clay pit, they go and grab some clay, they put it through a manufacturing process, they put some binding agents, other bits and pieces in there, and they put all this whole sludge of clay through a rotary kiln and they fire it up to a very, very high temperature, turn it around, and that's how come you've got these round balls because of all that turning around. And once it's done doing all the turning around and creating the little round balls, it's very, very hot. They douse it down with some water and whatever else is in that water, we don't know. And then they pack it up and that's the leca that you get. So in essence, you've got all sorts of things in this leca. We don't know what it is. When you're putting your plant in semi-hydroponic, you're working with a very specific amounts of things. So you've got your nutrient solution that's been highly calibrated to deliver a certain amount of nutrients in a certain pH in a certain environment. But if the base environment is not clean, that nutrient solution is not going to work very well. Because there's so much stuff in that leca, it's going to mean that our plant is not growing as optimally as it can. It will grow, but it won't grow as well as it could because of the dirty leca. Eve recommends 5 steps. The first step is to wash your leca, rinse it. Just get off as much of that dust as you can. The second step is where we're soaking the leca. Third step is where we're soaking the leca again. The fourth step is where you're drying off your leca and storing it if you want to. There is a fifth step where you can actually give your leca a third soak. Okay, we're gonna need a few things in order to replicate this blog post properly. So obviously I'm going to need a bag full of leca, which I already have, a TDS meter. So this is a meter that measures the total dissolved solids in a solution. Right, so we've got a TDS meter. I'm also going to need a storage tub. So this is what I'm going to use to soak my leca, and I've got another tub like this that you can probably use to store your leca when you're done as well. A laundry bag. This is a laundry bag, and that's what we're going to use to put our leca in and soak our leca in and so on. And then we're going to need some reverse osmosis water, or water as pure as you can get it. I don't normally buy bottled water, but I don't have reverse osmosis water. I don't have filtered water. And in keeping with the spirit of what it is I'm trying to do with this video, I did want to get reverse osmosis water. They purify this using reverse osmosis, so here is my reverse osmosis water. That's what I'm going to use. And I'm also going to use some Clonex clone solution as part of this process. So let's get into step 1 at this stage, and we are going to rinse the leca. We're gonna need to put our leca in the bag. We're putting it in the bag because this bag has got a little zip. It will keep our leca contained. We're not gonna have leca flying all over the place, and it's a good way of cleaning it and keeping it to stay. Because as you know, leca goes everywhere. This is my bag of leca. I'm just gonna get it and put it in my laundry bag. And I close my bag and my leca is in there. Now, one question you might be asking yourself, are we not going to boil this leca? Look, I mean, at this stage, I'm getting the leca out of the bag. It's been through a rotary kiln. I personally do not boil my leca straight out of the bag. I boil my leca when it's been used by another plant and I'm trying to sterilize it for use with another plant. You can if you want to. If you feel better by boiling it, you can boil it, but I'll probably boil it after I give it a rinse because it's just going to be very muddy as you're boiling it. So I'm going to take you outside at this point. We're going to go outside and we're going to rinse off this leca. We're doing it outside because there is a lot of dust and we don't want any of that leca dust going down our pipes because that might cause a problem with your plumbing. Now I know some people on the internet say, no, there's no need to do that. There isn't so much dust, so you don't need to do that, which is fine. But I think that's not a risk I'm willing to take. I'm not willing to spend thousands of dollars on having my pipes replaced or cleaned out because I thought it was going to be fine. So I'm not a risk taker like that. But if you are, more power to you. We're going to go outside. It's a 30-degree day here in Melbourne. It is absolutely boiling. I'm going to do this quick so I can get out of the sun. I want to show you this little thing here. So this is a little bucket that I've made and it's got these perforations on the sides. But what I've done is I've taken my soldering iron and I've made all these holes right at the bottom. And that's just so that when I've got heaps of leca in there, I can wash a lot of leca and all that water is seeping out at the bottom. So that works really, really well. So for those of you who are wanting to wash a lot of leca at one time, that might be a way to go. Okay, let's get washing our leca. As I start to wash this leca, take a look at what the water that's collecting in this plate is going to look like. Look at how dirty that water is. It is absolutely filthy. So something to note about the washing of leca process. One might think this is quite a lot of water being wasted, but I'm collecting the water in the tub underneath here, and I'm going to put that water in my garden. And I know a lot of people who clean their leca in this way. They put it out on their lawn and they're washing their leca. So that water is actually going to good use and is not being wasted. Phew! I am back from outside and I tell you that was terrible. So I've got my leca in here that's been rinsed, and as you can see from that plate, you know, the water does not exactly run clear. You probably will never get your leca's water to run clear when you're rinsing it. So as clear as you can get it is what we're aiming for here. I'm not going to soak this leca in tap water for 24 hours. This is my tub that I have filled with tap water. This is where the sciencey stuff starts, and this is where we're going to use our TDS meter. So I've turned my TDS meter on and I'm going to measure the total dissolved solids in my tap water. This is my tap water in Melbourne, Australia. So that is telling me that my tap water is 31 parts per million. 31 parts per million, okay? I'll now get my leca that's been rinsed and I'll put it in my water. So that is now soaking in there, and I'll let that stand for 24 hours. While my leca is soaking, let's talk a little bit about total dissolved solids. So total dissolved solids is a measure that's used to check the purity, if you like, for lack of a better term, of a solution or a nutrient or water even. It's a measure that's used for water, and it's measured using parts per million or milligrams per liter. So basically what total dissolved solids is the amount of organic or inorganic solids or substances that are dissolved in your liquid. So in this case, we're talking about water, so we're going to be talking about water. The amount of organic or inorganic solids or substances that are dissolved in your water. And things that are organic could be bacteria, fungi, hair, anything that you can find that's organic living in your water. Inorganic substances can be, things like calcium, magnesium, arsenic, fluoride, things like that. So what the total dissolved solids is measuring is how much of those substances are in your water. It's not going to tell you how much of, for example, calcium is in your water. No, it won't. It won't even tell you what is dissolved in your water. It's just telling you that this water has got so much dissolved in it. The ppm in the blog post by LecaAddict was 150 parts per million. My ppm is 31, and that's because the water in Australia in general, the water in Melbourne is very, very good water. We're really lucky here, which is why when I'm mixing my nutrients for my plants in Leca living in semi-hydro, I don't ever have to increase the pH or decrease the pH by using the pH up or the pH down, because the pH is stable and the pH is exactly where I need it to be, because our water is that fantastic. So tomorrow when I come back 24 hours later after this leca has been soaking, I'm going to measure the ppm of the water that the leca is sitting in, and I can tell you right now that that water is going to have a higher ppm because all the substances that are in the leca are going to move out of the leca and are going to go into my water, going to dissolve into my water, and that will raise the total dissolved solids in my water, and the ppm will be higher than 31. I look forward to showing you what that's going to do tomorrow. It's been 24 hours since I put my leca in for its first soak. That's my leca in there. It's still in that laundry bag, and the water is looking pretty good. It's looking very clear. I'm not sure if you can see that there. I'm going to test the TDS of the water that the leca's been soaking in for the last 24 hours. And as we discussed yesterday, I expect that the TDS of this water is going to be a lot higher than the 31 that it was before. So my meter's on and I'm going to dip it in now. Oh, wow. Wow. Okay, that's stopped now, and that has stopped at 361. 361. Yesterday, water straight from the tap before I put my leca in was 31 parts per million or ppm, and it's now at 361. So what that means is all the crud and all the substances that were inside my leca have now seeped outside the leca and have gone into the water, are dissolved in the water, and that's why my water is now at 361. So that just goes to show that there's a lot of stuff that's in your leca that you might not know about, that you won't see with the naked eye, but is in there, and you really want to get that stuff out. And just a single soak will actually drive quite a lot of those substances out of your leca and into your water. Let me see if I can show you that water again. That's what that water looks like. It's pretty clear. I think I did a pretty good job of washing that leca initially, but of course we're still at 361 ppm. We want it to be a bit lower. I'm now going to tip out this water and put fresh tap water and have this leca soak for another 24 hours. That's going to be soak number 2. And when we come back, that ppm, that TDS, the total dissolved solids, that number of 361 is going to change again. Let's see what's going to happen. I'll see you again in 24 hours. Hello, it's 24 hours since we put our leca in to soak for the second soak in tap water. I've got my TDS meter ready to go, and we're going to find out what's happening in this tub. and that says 171, which is a lot lower than what it was yesterday after its first soak. So again, this is telling you that our leca is getting cleaner because all the crud that was inside the leca is now in our water, which is at a much lower ppm before we soak the leca. So that is really, really good news. At this stage, this leca is good to use. If you've got some plants that you want to put up in leca, this leca is absolutely just fine. However, there is a third soak. You can soak your leca 3 times. And the reason why you'd want to do this is probably you've got some very, very special plants like Monstera albos, plants like that, and you're really, really nervous about moving them to leca, and you just want to make sure that everything is going to go as smoothly as you can. Giving your leca a third soak is very much a good idea because there still is some crud in that leca. We're never going to get it completely clean, but we can get it as clean as we can. And giving it that third soak is just going to give that crud the extra nudge that it needs to exit our leca and leave it cleaner. Now, what's special about this third soak though, is that we're soaking our leca in reverse osmosis water or filtered water. I've got a glass here. This is my reverse osmosis water. I want to test the ppm of this water because we want to know where we're starting. So in theory, this water is supposed to have a 0 ppm. In theory. I've got my TDS meter there at 0. It's ready to go, and I plonk that in my glass and I'll turn it around so I can see what's happening. Okay, that stopped flashing, and that's telling me that's a ppm of 3, which, you know, is okay because technically, I mean, my glass may have not been the cleanest. Who knows? Maybe there's something on the meter. I don't know. But a ppm of 3, I can live with. I'm happy with that. And I think that's as pure as you can get for reverse osmosis water testing in home. So what I'm going to do now is take my bucket, get rid of the water that's in here, get rid of that, and then I'll be back. That's my leca in my tub, washed out, and there is no water in there. I'm now going to fill this tub with my reverse osmosis water. And now I have my leca sitting in my reverse osmosis water. I'll let my leca soak for an additional 24 hours and then I'll be back. We'll measure the ppm and we'll go on to the next phase. It's been 24 hours since I soaked my leca in the reverse osmosis water. I've got my TDS meter ready to go. Let's find out what that's doing. If you're finding value from this video, if you're finding it interesting, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I've got my TDS meter turned on. Let's see what's happening. That is 166 parts per million. So we started at parts per million reading of 3 with the reverse osmosis water, and that's gone to 166. And what that's telling me is that a lot of the dissolved solids that were in that leca have now seeped into the reverse osmosis water, and in doing that, it's trying to create an equal state between what's in the leca and what's in the water. There was still a lot of crud in my leca. Invariably, it really does consolidate the argument for soaking your leca as many times as you can. And at this stage, I mean, you could keep soaking until kingdom come, but I think my leca is good enough to use for my high priced plants. But there is one extra step. And this one extra step includes taking it out of that water and putting a rooting agent solution in that. So that's where I get to use my Clonix Clone solution or my special sauce. I'm gonna pour it in here and let my leca soak in that. And Eve recommends using whatever, you know, CalMag, anything to sort of displace all the total dissolved solids that are in the leca with the good solids from our nutrient. And what that does is it primes that leca, so when you put your plant in there, there's nothing but good stuff to get your plant going. So I soak my leca in Clonix clone solution for anything from 24 hours to 3, 4, 5, 6 days, whatever, until I need to use it, and I know that that Leca is the best that I can get it to be. If there's any questions, please let me know below. With this video, I am not saying this is the only way to treat your Leca straight out of a bag. I think it's a good way to treat your Leca straight out of the bag. There's no harm in soaking more times than fewer times, but I think the take-home message here is you definitely need to soak your Leca for a slightly extended period of time. Check out this video where I discuss nutrients, pH, and Leca. I'll see you there.